Hey everybody, Shep here. Today is Monday, July 4th. So happy 4th of July to everybody. Hopefully everybody's had a fun weekend. We went to a family cookout last night, and yeah, hopefully everybody else has been having a good time and a good weekend. So this is the first video I've made for a little bit. My last video was me planting my field corn, and that's been a while ago. So today I'm going to do a tour of everything that I've got growing on the homestead. So as you can see, the garden's doing really well. I've really been able to stay on top of weeds this year, and this is probably I don't think probably, this is the cleanest weed-free garden that I've ever had. Everything's done really very well so far this year. Now it's starting to get really dry. We haven't had much of a rain for it's been a couple weeks since we had much rain. The last rain we had, I think we had like 6/10 of an inch, and it was dry then, and it soaked in real good, and everything zoomed after that. But yeah, well, we'll take a walk and we'll look at some of the stuff that we got going on in the homestead. Everything's very different than the last time you saw this garden. So I know I talked about the my Mexican sunflowers before. These are just starting to bloom. They're just beautiful, beautiful orangey red color. They'll be full of these flowers. They're just starting. Celery, it's doing really well. They're not quite big enough you'd want to harvest them yet. My great northern beans here, you can see I've staked them, and they've got some small beans on them there. Well, here we go. Oh, look at some. They're just starting on them. Just starting. And the my Roma green beans, actually picked the first batch of them today. And on these 3 rows, I had about 3/4 of a bushel. So I picked them this morning while the garden was still in the shade, and then I've been in the house breaking them some, and then I've been mowing grass too, so I'd mow some grass, come in, break some beans. So my wife's already started canning them, so we're always excited. We're having potatoes and green beans tonight. That's, you always got to do that when you have your first batch. Corn's tasseling, so that's exciting. You can see we've got ears starting to grow now. This is only the second year that I've planted the garden in this spot. My grandparents had a garden here back in the 60s, but I had never had a garden here till last year. And last year when I planted corn down here, it just grew incredibly well compared to my other gardens. And last year I had lots of corn with 2 ears on a stalk, and you can see they've all got some sort of double ear almost. Onions are doing really well. They're starting to bulb out, you can see. And then carrots, I really need to come through and thin the carrots again, but they're doing well. The potatoes, they're still doing really well. These potatoes look beautiful and were waist high, and then we had a little bit of a windstorm and it laid them all over. They're still doing good, but it just looks like a mess. Peppers, I've got some pepperoncinis that I'm going to probably pick soon. They're actually pretty close. I like them to have a thicker skin, so when you eat them, or when you pickle them, they're crunchier. so I'm letting those go. And then tomatoes, we've just got all kind of green tomatoes. And in fact, earlier today, on one of my Roma plants, I had an orange one, but it had started to rot. I guess it had blossom end rot or something, because it was just, it started to rot. But and then we've been picking zucchini and yellow squash. My wife's been making baby food out of it. Got my cucumbers here. Now these were I planted these a lot later, so they're just starting to bloom. So this garden, it's doing really well. I had a little bit of space over here that I didn't end up planting anything in over here, and my daughter wanted some watermelons, so 2 or 3 days ago we seeded some for her because she likes watermelons. I like watermelons once in a while, but I'm not super crazy about them. It's one of those things that I think, yeah, watermelon, and they're never like as good as I think they're gonna be, or at least that's what it seems like. So I'll get on up to the next spot and we'll go from there. Okay, now we're coming up here to my asparagus, and unfortunately, of course the weeds have kind of taken over now, but unfortunately my rhubarb has not done really well. You saw when I planted them, they were nice, healthy plants. They've pretty much, well, all 4 of them died back. This one has a little bit still growing, so I'm gonna get these weeds off it and see if somehow it comes out of it. And then I think it was this plant. Yeah, it's got a little bit of green right there, so it might come out of it too. But I don't really know what the deal was, because like I said, they were really nice plants. And I mean, if you've seen my garden, I kind of know a little bit what I'm doing, so it's not like I'm completely clueless about plants. But I don't know. But the asparagus, I started from seed. I mulched it because it was getting really bad with weeds too. I need to come back and probably put a little bit more on it. It's doing really well, so I'm excited about that. I love asparagus, and it's going to be nice to pick this in a couple years. Well, I thought we would take a look at the chickens, see how they're doing. See if we can see them in there. They're really getting big. Unfortunately, we had a casualty. If you remember, I had 5 of them. And one morning I came out here and there was only 4 in there. And I thought, uh-oh. And didn't really see any obvious like signs, no holes in anything. And I got to looking, and I would assume it was a raccoon. It was something with hands. You can still see the feathers here on the ground. The chicken wire, of course, after the fact I put the hardware cloth on it, but the chicken wire here was like pulled out, wasn't broken or anything. So somehow the raccoon it was my Rhode Island Red, which was the smallest one of the chickens. I mean, it wasn't tiny, it was only a little bit smaller than the others, but the somehow I guess the coon grabbed it and literally pulled it out a piece at a time, because this was covered in blood and feathers. And yeah, so that same day I went to the hardware store and got some hardware cloth, and hopefully that'll keep them out now. I got some on this side, but I ran out of screws and stuff, so I didn't make this side as neat looking, but it's working. But I got the stuff today to finish it and make it all nice and neat looking like that side. So yeah, but they're growing really good. They're trying to think, I got them on May 21st, so I've had them almost 6 weeks. I think it'll be 6 weeks this weekend. But yeah, they're doing really good. So I think the last video that I had before my corn planting video was when I did an update when I finally got my pumpkins planted, and that was on June 18th. So since then, the pumpkins were stressed at first because it was kind of dry, but since then we got that last rain we had, and they've just really taken off. The other day I was looking out the window and what is something wrong with the pumpkins? I see a lot of yellow out here, and then I came out here and it's blooms. They're all blooming good. I don't know if you remember me talking before, but it's a mixture of all different size pumpkins, little ones, big ones, jack-o'-lantern size, just supposed to be giant. We'll see how giant they grow, but yeah. So I had I think it was 50 pumpkin plants, 2 birdhouse gourd plants, and I had an extra cucumber plant, so I stuck him in the ground too. But they're doing good. And then my sorghum, it's getting it. It likes this heat. You don't really see any sorghum grown around here, but it likes the heat, and it's doing good. My wheat, yeah. So what happened with this wheat? I got it all cut here, and then it was out here drying just like this. And I knew there was like a chance of rain, but it wasn't supposed to rain until like 6 in the evening, and it rained about 2 or 3 o'clock, and I wasn't able to get the wheat in because I wasn't home. So it got rained on pretty good, and then it never really dried out good, and it got rained on again. And so at that point, I didn't care anymore. And I'm going to take the wheat and just scatter it here on the ground, put it back. But, I mean, it wasn't... I wish I could have tried to thresh some of it, but at the same time, I've literally had so much other stuff going on and just trying to maintain everything that I wasn't too upset about it. Next year, I'm probably not going to plant wheat. Well, I am actually. Next year I'm going to do, well, this fall I'm going to do an experiment with some cover crops, and I'm going to cover crop a bunch of these gardens and see how that does, because I've never done that before. So sow it in wheat, but instead of trying to harvest it, I'm going to plow it back under in the spring. And then I had a crop failure on my corn and had to replant it. Well, it's coming up good now. So when did I plant? I planted this June 17th, and it's coming up good now. You really use a rain. Don't know if you see that out there. That is a dead crow decoy. The reason I have that, one year I planted corn up here, and in the matter of like a day and a half, the crows completely decimated this little patch here. They just, when the corn was just coming up, they came through and they literally went down the road, pulling the corn plant up to eat the kernel on the bottom. And so the next year, I got that dead crow decoy, and you just hang it upside down like that, and the crows won't come around it. I haven't even really seen any. I've heard them around, but I haven't seen them. And you can see I've started to put my electric fence up. I'm going to finish that later this evening, once this gets some shade on it. So I've had enough fun being hot today, because we've had a little bit of problem with the deer. But you can see the corn's doing really well. So what the deer have been doing over here is a perfect example. And you know, it's one of those things. I experienced this for the first time last year. I know it was deer because there were deer tracks. You could see fresh deer tracks. So they're just going and they're just eating, you know, eating the leaves off like that. And I had that happen last year for the first time ever seeing the deer do that. But I'll put the fence up, and hopefully that'll keep them out. And then here they got it pretty good, and then just a couple other random spots here and there they got it. But last year, the corn that they did this to, eventually it came out of it. It grew out of it and caught up to the rest of the corn, which that's a good thing. But at the same time, you'll have, you know, that plant won't ever do as good as it would have done just because it had to waste the energy catching back up. Now, it's not to say I won't get anything off of it. There's a deer track. But, yeah, so, but still, all things being said, I'm pretty happy with it. If it was just a little bit taller and I knew we were getting a chance of rain, I'd throw the nitrogen to it because it would like that. It would really like the rain though. Some of the over there on the edge where that's a drier soil, they're like really stressed over there. But yeah, so it's doing good. Everything's good. So, well, I hope you enjoyed the little tour on the 4th of July. And like I said, I hope everybody out there is having a really good weekend. Well, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys later.